Alyssa is telling me that I'm about to take over control, which is dangerous and exciting. So I'll wait maybe just another 60 seconds or so. You can see we're almost getting towards having all the people we thought we would have. So I'll give a couple more minutes, or just maybe one more minute, and then we'll get ourselves started. Maybe 30 more seconds and we'll get going. Okay, we'll get ourselves moving. So first off, hi, I'm Sean Tierney. You might know me from @ChartingHockey on Twitter, where I fill people's timelines with interactive charts pretty much every day. And if it's not hockey when we're in the time of COVID, it's been KBO baseball of late and whatever else. And so here's the plan for today. We have about 45 minutes. Alyssa was asking for me to walk you through how to set up Tableau on your own computer, how to go about finding some data, and then we'll walk through the process of making your first viz. My hope, my intention is to take you from having nothing at all, maybe never having even heard of Tableau before today, and have your first viz published online that you can use and share and brag to all your friends about. I assure you they'll be very impressed. So that's the goal. At the end of, say, 45 minutes, give or take, maybe a little bit longer, there'll be time for questions where you can ask, or if there's something that didn't make sense as we went, you can let me know, and I'll try to troubleshoot anything we can. And of course, I'll leave all my contact info at the end of the presentation. And I'm pretty active in social media, and so if there's something I can do to help you or to push you along in your journey with data, I'm happy to help. So we'll get ourselves started. I'm going to switch to sharing my screen. And again, if you can't see something or if my audio stinks or whatever along the way, just type it in the chat below so that I know. I'm just assuming that everything's beautiful so far. So today's talk for me is on how to build hockey viz specifically. That's what I spend most of my time with. There's a lot of work being done right now by really smart, intelligent men and women on Twitter and for hockey teams, using R and Python, using a variety of coding languages to gather data, to make models, and to help, sort of find insights in hockey. What we're doing is it's in that group, but it's just to the side of it where we're taking all the data and all the understandings that we have, all the stats we can gather, and we're turning them into viz that, sort of capture 1,000 words in a picture. So just a little of my background, not much before we get going. I'm at Charting Hockey on Twitter, as I mentioned. I have a site, chartinghockey.ca. That's primarily because I was making a lot of hockey viz over the past 5 years or so, maybe a little bit longer. I'm getting old. And it was being stored on Tableau, which isn't the easiest way for people to go and find what they wanted to use when they're downloading an image for an article, or when I was sharing insights with the teams that would be asking for something. So I've got a website, chartinghockey.ca, where you can go and find some of the work that I do. I've worked for the Hamilton Bulldogs since 2017. That's in the OHL here as their director of analytics. It's a role that's kind of grown over time. It started off as kind of, I was helping out and doing it sort of on the side and part-time around my other job. It sort of escalated to the point that I was able to take a step away from my old job as a teacher. I taught mostly grade 7, 8 for about 10 years, which, is a job that I really loved. I wasn't looking to leave, but between, the analytics job with the Bulldogs and my own website, writing for The Athletic, just sort of a unique opportunity to get out there and take a spin. And, I hope maybe Tableau can be part of your journey in doing something similar someday, if that's what your goal is. So that's me. Okay, so just a little bit on Tableau before we dig in. My goal is to be hands-on. As a former teacher, I know that the more I talk, the less appealing this will be. So we'll try to get hands-on really quick. Just so we have some background on what Tableau is, the thing that's great about it is that it's a sort of drag and drop software that's free. And it creates charts that are, in the first place, are really visually appealing, which is what drew me to it when I started with Tableau years and years ago. They just look good, and the program produces really attractive charts, which, half the battle is having people look at what you produce, and this is a program that's designed well for that. The other part that's great about it is that it's free software. We're going to be using Tableau Public. There is a for-purchase version of the software as well, which gives you access to an online server to share with people in an organization. You don't need that at all to get started, and it's not something I've used much at all. The public version will take you a long, long way. And then using Tableau, you can create interactive viz where the user can select, they can filter down, they can click on different aspects to sort of cater the viz to look the way they want it to. That's a really unique feature about Tableau that, for me, makes it stand out above other ways you can make viz. It isn't a programming language, though, so I encourage you to learn about Tableau, practice Tableau, make mistakes, and keep on trying with it. But I also encourage you to double back and learn R or Python, whichever one maybe speaks to you, if data is something that you want to dig into en route. I've sort of, taught myself the two, and I like them both in very different ways. So figure out what you like. There's great online courses for those, but that's not what Tableau is. It's really focused on the interactive visual element and not as much the data aspect as R and Python. The last thing to know about Tableau, if you downloaded it, which I hope you've done in advance, you can work through today, they've recently added onboard animation for Viz. So there were ways to kind of work around it before and make your Viz do things for the viewer to watch or the user to watch. The animation part is built in an easier to use way now. That's something we'll just sort of tip our cap to on our way by today, not what we'll focus on, but just a great feature that's in there. Tableau is constantly updating. So it's a really, living program that is adding new features all the time. Okay, so before we jump in, hopefully you've seen this link already. If you haven't, please download this as we go and you can follow along. It's Tableau Public. The link is here. If you Googled Tableau Public, it'll come up right away. It'll ask you for an email address as your account sign-in, so please do that. I'm going to go grab some data, but a couple of notes on the data part. A couple of notes on the data part as we go here. Are you seeing my slides advance? I'm just noticing in the chat that they're not moving along.
Sean, I still see, this is Allison, I still see your title slide.
Okay. Well, I'm going to switch out of here in a second anyway. So perfect. Let's just move along. So the last one was just let's get started, really encouraging images that would fire you up and sort of get that fire burning in your belly. I'm sorry if you can't see it, but trust me, it was very inspiring. Okay, so let's switch.
Sean, sorry, just jumping in here. If you try unsharing your screen and then resharing and then share your entire display, if you're trying to get into Tableau, I think you might have selected to just share your web browser.
Okay. Okay, hopefully you're seeing everything now, I hope.
Yep, they can see everything.
Beautiful.
Success.
Okay, great. So I'm going to stand for a second here, then we'll jump into Tableau. So if you have received the email from Alyssa, she sent a note on my behalf asking for you to grab some data that I had included. If not, you can follow along really quick. It won't take long.
I also just put the link in the chat. So everyone, if you go to the chat, there's a zip file there and it's got all the data. And I promise I'll stop butting it.
No, that's perfect. Thank you, Alyssa. So there's a variety of great places to go online. Evolving Hockey is one of those pillars. They're out there doing great work and providing data for people to do analysis and make viz. Natural Stat Trick is one of those great places that you can go. Corey Schneider does a lot of manual tracking and you can access his data too. These places are moving to a Patreon model to access, and I highly, highly encourage you to support any of these that you can. I know we're in a really weird time in the world right now. If it's something that you can afford, though, those data miners, those people that make that data available are so key to the community. We're going to go to moneypuck.com today. So I'm standing for MoneyPuck in my MoneyPuck shirt today. Peter Tanner runs this website, and he provides a ton of data that you can use for analysis and to make viz as well. And so that's where we're going to go today. It's in the zip file, as Alyssa mentioned, but if you don't see that, or if you want to follow me, we're just going to go grab team level data for the 2019-20 season. But there's, as you can see, just a host of data that MoneyPuck makes available for you to do work. Okay, so let's hop in. So when you open a new Tableau file, you're presented with this sort of ominous blank screen. When it is updating, which is very, very frequent of late, they're making a ton of changes to the program. You'll see here the updates. I really recommend you keep up with the updates because they're in an update mode right now where new features are coming available almost every month. Over here is where you're going to connect to your data file to start off. And so for me and for us, that's either a text file like a CSV or an Excel file if you have multiple sheets. When you download from moneypuck.com, you've got a text file, so we're going to click there. And it should look something like this. So let's double click to load that in. Okay, so your view won't mirror mine exactly as we go, because this will keep on this side of the pane. On the left side, we'll keep sort of a running tally of things that you've looked at, different files you've loaded over time. So you should just see the team CSV. It gives you a preview in here that you can check to make sure that the file that you uploaded that you intend to use, everything kind of looks the way you suspected it would look. And since MoneyPuck prepared this one, we know that it's good to go right off the hop. One feature that's worth mentioning while we're here before we jump in, Tableau has recently added the ability to connect multiple tables through here to connect multiple files of data so that you can link together old with new. We're not doing that right now, but if we were trying to, it looks like this. You can drag from the left pane a new file that you want to add and connect it. It will ask you to connect. It's not something we need to look at for now. Just know that that feature is available and it's something that they've just recently tweaked. So once we know the data is all good to go, we're hopping into sheet 1 at the bottom. Okay, so this is our main pane. Let's take a second to look around what we can see on the screen first before we start dragging and dropping. So one interesting thing that Tableau offers is the Show Me tab in the top right. We're not going to use it for today, but you can. It will suggest to you how to create a table in the design of the tables that are over here. And so if you want a line graph, it will tell you you need to grab this dimension and a measure and throw them in up here. This can be handy when you're getting started if you just want to see what different viz look like, but you're totally stuck on figuring out how to make Tableau do it. We won't need it for today, but just know that it's there. This is sort of the meat of what we're doing. Tableau takes your data when you load it in, and it separates it into two groups, names and values. The names have the ABC beside them. So Tableau has automatically detected that those are strings or that they're text, that they aren't numbers, and so that they might be used for labels or maybe for a filter. And so Tableau will do this. It will sometimes make mistakes depending on the file that you input. For example, if a stat that you have is expected goals percentage, and so it says XG at the front, sometimes Tableau will misinterpret that as a string instead of as a number. It's really rare though, but it's just worth checking. If something appears as a letter, a string, and it shouldn't be, you can click on it and tell Tableau, no, it's a number, it's a date, it's whatever. So you can still customize even if that happens. This in green with the number sign beside is all of our stats. When you use data from MoneyPuck, you get a long scroll bar because there's a ton in there that MoneyPuck makes available in the download section. So these are all the different stats that you could possibly drag into the viz you want to create. It's a ton, so much to work with. And it's something I'll keep circling back to. There's a lot of room in this field for anyone who's interested to dig around and go do extra research and come up with insights. We're just watching Micah talk about the impact of zone on penalty take rates. And there's so much available still to find out about hockey, even just with the data we have. Forget about data tracking that's coming. There's still so much to do with what we have. And this MoneyPuck data set is kind of a first step into that. So what I'd like to do is we'll create a standard team Corsi scatter plot today. That'll give us a chance to do the logos that are provided in that zip file. So we'll use those logos, we'll create a scatter plot, and it'll give me a chance to talk about the different features as we go. Okay, so when we look through the data on the left, if you hover over top of any of these little pills, you get a full view of what's actually being counted here. So this is flurry score venue adjusted X goals. So that's a stat that MoneyPuck tracks where the shot is given a value, an expected goal value, how likely it was to be a goal, but it's adjusted for rush and rebound shots, for the score, for the venue. So, really useful number. We're going to do a shots chart for today, a standard Corsi chart. So we're just going to scan through. So in here we get a section of a bunch of different options you could choose from. We'll start off with score adjusted shot attempts for. So that's the CF, the Corsi 4. We're adjusting that for score. We know that teams that are trailing take more shots and teams that are leading take fewer shots as they go into a shell to defend a lead. So this is our shots for. We're going to take it, and you can click on it and hold it and drag it. And we're looking at columns and rows. That's going to create the up and down and the side to side view. So for now, let's just put it in columns. and we just get this straight line. So we haven't told Tableau anything else about the data. We haven't told which teams did the shots. We haven't said what day the shots are against a team, nothing. It just knows that we have 245,315 shot attempts for in sum, and that's it. If you're looking over at the show me on the side, you'll notice that it will start to recommend or show you what charts are immediately available. We could do a histogram. We've got the horizontal bar. A lot of these aren't lit up. That's because we don't have the right information in here to do those yet. All right, so the other one we want to do to get that Corsi scatter plot, we have shot attempts for. We'll pop back over to the side, and we want score adjusted shot attempts against. Same thing, click, drag, and drop. So again, the beautiful thing about Tableau is that it's really easy to play around at first, to drag, to drop, to move things, to make mistakes that don't cost you hours and hours of time trying to fix. It's really intuitive. So we've just dragged and dropped these. If we decide we didn't like these, you can throw them out, throw something else in, but we're going to leave them for now. So what we have here is, one dot. And the reason we have one dot is because we still haven't told Tableau how we want to break this down. And for us, we're interested in knowing what are the rates at which teams took shots and allowed shots against. And so to do that, we need to go grab the teams and tell Tableau that we want to see that. So there's a few ways we can do it. Here's team. We're going to drag that in. But instead of adding it to the columns or rows, we want to make a scatter. So we're going to tell Tableau to split this sum up into the teams. Right now, it's just got the sum for the entire NHL. We want to break it up into teams. You can do that in a couple different ways. If you drag Tableau, you can drop it onto any of these 6 options that are right here. You can tell Tableau to separate the teams by color. You could tell it to separate them by shape. You could just label them. Or you could even have it separate them by size, which, 31 different sizes is kind of a strange way to do it, but you could. So let's just drag it onto label so you can see that first. All right, so now we've got the shot attempts that the team has taken for and against. And it's broken them up by label. So we told Tableau, we want you to label them. Okay, so we could also, if you decide the label kind of stinks, it's not what you're looking for, you can just drag it from here and reapply it to size. You get this strange thing, and I'll make my show me disappear. It's giving us a legend over here to show us which size corresponds with which team, which is probably a little bit insane. So we could do it with color. Color might work for you. But again, we got a lot of dots going on here, so it's going to make more sense to do something else. So we'll take team and drag it to shape, and we'll just leave it like that for the moment. So now Tableau, because we said we want teams to each have a different shape, it has taken all the teams and broken them up into these shapes. It's not ultimately what we want, but it's a good start for us. Okay, so I'll talk for a second, but what you need to do next is grab that logos file and unzip it. So I sent Alyssa, and it's in the chat, a file that looks like this that has a folder called color logos. That's what we want next. Inside the color logos is the collection of current logos for the NHL teams. So color logos. It needs to go into a special spot on your laptop, on your computer, if you're going to use it to tell Tableau to use those shapes. So I'll show you where that is. Click it and drag it, if you're still following along with this, to your documents. Inside your documents, you should see My Tableau repository. Let me make this a little bit bigger. You should see My Tableau repository. That's where Tableau, it created this in your documents. When you downloaded it, it created a folder where you can keep any shapes you want. It doesn't have to just be logos. It could be anything at all. It could be pickles. So we're going to use this. Take color logos, drag it to my Tableau repository, and then you'll see all those options, bookmark, connector, blah, 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 and shapes. Shapes is where you want to drop it. So I already have it, so that's fine. So you should see that color logos file that you unzipped. It goes into my documents, my Tableau repository, shapes, and you just drop it in there. Once you've done that, you're good to go. We'll pop back into Tableau. Okay, so now we can tell Tableau that those shapes that we just downloaded, we'd like those shapes to represent the shapes that they've given us at random. So we can go over to our legend, which gives you options to change these shapes. There's a little down arrow, a little caret on the top right. Click on that. There's options to edit the title. So it says team with a lowercase t. We could change that. We could click off show title so it doesn't show a title at all. We can mess around with the legend, the format, the color, the font. We're going to go to edit the shapes because we want to change what the shapes are. Up top, you'll get default. It's just the shapes that Tableau chooses for you automatically. And then you'll get a drop-down list that should include color logos. If you don't see that, it's just because you've just loaded in, Tableau doesn't see that. Click reload shapes right here. Reload the shapes, and then color logos should appear in your drop-down menu. Like this. There's two ways to go about this part. You can click on Anaheim and say, I'd really like it to look like the very attractive Anaheim Ducks logo. You can go one by one, or because we know that the 31 teams are here in alphabetical order, and the color logos you have in your folder, those are arranged in alphabetical order as well. We can just click Assign Palette, and it just drops them in one by one in order. Some data will come with the full team name spelled out instead of the three-letter abbreviation, like Winnipeg instead of WPG, Washington instead of WSH. If that happens, it'll change this order, and so your logos won't line up properly. So it's just something to double check to make sure. I always scroll to the bottom and make sure Winnipeg and Washington are correct. That's one that always goes crazy. So we know we're all good. It all lines up alphabetically. Click Apply. And click OK. All right, so if you're still following along so far, congratulations. You've got logos on your very first viz. They look like they're in a distant galaxy, but we're on the right track here. Okay, so let's get this looking a little bit sharper. There's a couple of things that are wrong, and we're going to treat each of those in order. You'll notice that the axis is a mess right now. We'll fix that in a minute, but let's get the view right first. So these logos are really, really small. We can change that here. And it's just a slider. So again, Tableau's greatest gift is that it's really, really easy to bump around and do things and just try. So we can, make them completely invisible. We can make them so large that you can't tell the difference. Tableau suggests this sort of medium size, which is fine. I'll go just a little bit larger. Okay, so this is good. We have our teams representing how many shot attempts they've had this year and how many shot attempts they've given up against. But you've probably noticed along the way that these numbers still don't make any sense. So there's a couple reasons why, and we're going to fix those now. So right now we just have total, and we haven't done anything to filter this data at all. So we haven't told Tableau that we're only interested in 5-on-5. We haven't told Tableau that we'd like to see it per 60 instead of just the giant total. So those are things that we can one by one knock down. Let's start with the filter first. So up here you can filter your image so it only shows whatever subsection of your data you want. If for some reason you just wanted to show shot attempts for and against by position, that's something that you can drop in. We want to do situation. So this is the way that MoneyPuck provides this data. It'll be different if you go natural stat trick. It'll be different if you go to evolving hockey, wherever you go. the way that the data is structured in the spreadsheet changes what you'll see in a filter option. Right now, because we haven't told it anything, this data is showing us the 4-on-5 shots, 5-on-4 shots, 5-on-5, all added up again, and then other. So not what we want if we're showing a 5-on-5 plot. Just click on 5-on-5 and click apply. So now our axis ranges make a lot more sense. Ultimately, we're going to publish this viz online for other people to be able to see and use, or even just for ourselves. If this filter is something that we want people to be able to use, you can right-click on it and you get a variety of options. You can change what the filter said. You can take the filter off by clearing it. If you have multiple sheets using this data, you can tell Tableau to apply this filter to everybody. Don't worry about that for now. Let's just click Show Filter. So now it pops up over here. So now when we publish this viz eventually, a user or yourself, you can decide, okay, not 5-on-5, I actually just want to see the 5-on-4 shots. Actually, let's just look at 4-on-5 instead. Actually, I want to see everything all jammed together. Or maybe I just want to see those other situations, so places where it's a 5-on-3 or a 3-on-5. By putting the filter, by clicking to show filter over there, you give the user or yourself in the future the ability to just sort of change it from over here. And again, Tableau is just filled with myriad options. So if you want this to look differently, maybe we just want people to have the ability to choose a single value from a dropdown. We can change it. Now it looks like a single value dropdown. You choose 5-on-4, choose 5-on-5. Again, it's just so many customizations that I'll try not to let myself get too sidetracked with them, but just know that if you think you want to do it in Tableau, you can probably do it because it's just full of options. Okay, let's treat the rest of the issues we have here. We now have a 5-on-5 shot plot with the logos loaded in. So it's looking snazzy, but we have everybody jammed up all together because Tableau is insisting on starting our scatter plot from 0. But we don't really need to start from 0 because we're using a scatter plot. It's not a bar chart, so we're okay to change it. If we right-click on an axis, we get options for how to change it. So let's right-click on our x-axis. You can edit the axis. That means change the range. We can change the format, like the font. We can add a reference line, which we're going to skip back and do shortly. Let's just go to edit for now. So in edit the axis, now we see a whole bunch of things that we can do to manipulate this axis. Include 0 is checked by default on a scatter. We don't need 0, so we're going to uncheck it. That's going to solve the problem of everybody being jammed into the top right corner. If you wanted to set a specific range, you could click Fixed and then tell it the start and tell Tableau the finish line. We're not going to do that. We're just going to say automatic. Tableau can choose the range it thinks makes sense. We could choose to reverse the axis, which we're going to do in a second for our y-axis, but we'll leave this one alone. We can also change the title. So if we think score adjusted shot attempts 4 is a mouthful for our viewer, we can just say 4C4. Okay, so now you can see that the logos have spread out side to side on the horizontal on the x-axis. They spread out because we told Tableau, don't bother including 0, just adjust the way you think. Let's go do the same thing for the y. So you can double click it or right click it to pop up the options. So a custom that I took from Micah Blake McCurdy, years ago when I started making these charts, is the idea of reversing this axis so that we can get good in the top right of a chart all the time. And so for this, we mean a team that has taken a lot of shots for, they're going to show further and further to the right. But right now, the teams that have allowed the most shots are up in the top right as well. If we click reverse, Tableau will flip that for us. Now the teams that have taken the most shots are still on the right, but the ones that have allowed the fewest shots are actually up. So we reverse the y-axis. That gives us Vegas and Montreal, Carolina, Los Angeles, Colorado. We get those teams up in the top right corner instead for good. And when we're labeling our axis after, it's a little bit more intuitive to have the good up in the right. at least for me. If this isn't something that you care about, don't bother. And again, we need to unclick that include 0. So it'll space them out for us. We change the title on the other one to CF for shots for. So let's change certain to Corsi against and close it down. Okay, so this is starting to look a little bit more like a plot that you could actually get something out of. So now we can see, which teams created the most and allowed the fewest. RIP those Montreal Canadiens who just couldn't finish this year, but really paced the league in generating shots. Carolina in their familiar spot, being sort of above average in generating shots, not allowing a ton of shots against. Detroit clearly in it to win it this year. So now we've got some spacing here, which is really nice. We still have the issue of we're looking at all shot attempts. We haven't broken it down to a per 60 rate. That's something we're going to jump over here and do in a second. So don't worry that the numbers here are still crazy. We'll fix that in just a sec. Let's get our reference lines onto here next before we go fix the shots that we're showing. So we'll right click again on your axis. One of the great features again with Tableau is that you can add a reference line. So, a picture can tell 1,000 words, and coming from a teaching background, I know that visuals are really key. And right now it's a little bit hard to tell who was average, who was above, who was worse. And so we can use some built-in functions in Tableau to point those things out. Right now it's saying, I'll draw a line on the average of the shot attempts for. It's going to label it with the computation. It's going to use this gray line, no fill above or below, and it'll recalculate the line if we click on something. So let's see what that looks like. Just click OK. Okay, so now we got a reference line. If you hover over top of it, it will show you the average number of shot attempts for teams in the league. So that's all right. We have the average part is marked. As a point of style, I don't like having that there, so I think the average line kind of speaks for itself once it's there. So we'll go in and take that off. You can right-click right on that line and edit it and say, I assume my reader knows that's an average line drawn in the middle. So I'm going to choose to label it with nothing. If you want to change that line, you can click the line and say, give me that same thickness, but let's go with a black line that'll pop. And then just click OK. Okay, so that's nice too. Let's jump on to the same side, see if you can go ahead without me. Just going to double click or right click on this axis, add a reference line. We want the average, that's great. We're not going to show a label. We'll assume that our viewer knows that that line is the average line. We chose a black line on the other side, so that's great. Okay, so you can tinker with this in 1,000 ways. The fill above and below is kind of interesting, although I never use it. If you click edit, there's a fill above and below. You could tell Tableau that you would like a color to highlight the above and below section. For obvious reasons, it doesn't make a lot of sense here. So I'm just going to undo twice to get rid of that. But you could if that's what you're up to. Okay, so this is starting to look sort of like a common plot, something that you might see on Twitter, something that I might tweet at you, sort of daily in the morning. But we haven't solved this issue. And so let's pop over and change what we're showing here. Right now, we're just showing the sum of all the shot attempts for and all the shot attempts against at 5-on-5 for different teams. We're showing the whole thing. But what we would like to do is show that per 60 so that we can equalize, because not all teams have played the same number of games. And so we want to have that on a common basis. So that's usually per 60 or per hour. To make that happen in MoneyPuck, we're going to have to do a couple of quick steps, which is why I've left it for the end. So I'd like you to scroll along on your data side until you see ice time. We're going to right click on that one. So Again, another great feature of Tableau, and I guess I should probably be asking for sponsorship from Tableau at some point. Another great feature is that you can use formulas within Tableau to change things, to create a formula for something new, to add a couple of measures together, or to make something per 60. We're going to do that. So in IceTime, the way MoneyPuck provides the data, it's in seconds. And so my first move with MoneyPuck data is to create a calculated field and change that to minutes. So we're going to find IceTime on your data side, right-click it, and we're going to create a calculated field for it. We're going to make something new. We'll make time on ice instead of IceTime, so we can go from the seconds of IceTime to minutes. So when you click create a calculated field, it'll pop you into this new box. In here, you could add different measures, you could subtract, you could divide, you can do all sorts of mathematical formulas in here, which is really, really neat that you can do it inside. So you could do it in the Excel sheet too, but Tableau has the ability to do it within. We want to make IceTime into minutes. Right now it's in seconds, so we're going to divide by 60. Tableau will tell us at the bottom this calculation is valid, so we haven't done something that makes no sense. If you tried to divide by name, so the name of the teams, it says this calculation contains errors, can't divide a float value, a number, by a string. So it just lets us know that that doesn't make sense, but we know we want to divide it by 60 to get minutes. It'll ask us for a new name, so calculation 1 isn't very clear. Let's just change it to TOI, time on ice, and apply. So you'll notice that it popped in TOI, time on ice, for you on the side. So now you have minutes played, so that's good news. Grab it for a second, just so you can see how this works. Grab the time on ice and drag it to the tooltip, and drop it on tooltip. Tableau will show you that it's on the tooltip. Now when you hover over top of any of these logos, it'll show you TOI, time on ice. So that's how many minutes we have for the Buffalo Sabres, doing their Buffalo Sabres dull stuff this year. You can float over top of anybody and you get the time on ice that they've played, something in the neighborhood of 3,300 minutes for most. Okay, so that checks out. We know the time on ice makes sense, that's about what it was. Now we need to make a new calculated field. We want to take those shot attempts that we plotted and we want to make them per 60, so we've got everybody on an equal playing field. So let's go back to our score adjusted shot attempts, and we'll do 4 first. We started with that last time. So right click, bonus points if you had that, create a calculated field. Let's do it again. So we have the score adjusted shot attempts 4. That's what we're showing at the top right now, the total. But again, it doesn't make sense because teams have played different numbers of minutes and different numbers of games. We want to divide it by the time on ice that we just created. So we just made that time on ice calculation and we want to use it. So here it is. You actually have to click on it so that Tableau will put it in the square brackets that tells it it's a value. Calculation is valid. Okay, so that's good. Now we're going to get score adjusted shot attempts for per minute, but we want it per 60. That's just sort of the convention that's common with hockey Twitter, a hockey graphs sort of style, to make it per hour. So we're going to put a bracket around, and I promise this is as mathy as I'll get with this. We'll put brackets around, and we want to multiply this whole thing by 60. So we take the shot attempts, divide it by time on ice, so we get per minute, then multiply it by 60 to get per hour. That'll make sense. This one is our CF60, Corsi for per 60. We know the calculation is valid. That's good news. Click OK. It'll create a new calculation for you. Okay, let's go do the shots again. So you have to scroll down. Score adjusted shot attempts against. Same thing, right click, create a calculated field. We have the shot attempts against, what we were showing on our reversed y-axis. We'll divide it by time on ice, Make sure you click on it so it goes in the square brackets. And we're going to multiply this out by 60. If you add a random bracket, Tableau catches that. You can't do that. Lets you know when you're valid. That's good. This one is our CA60. Great. Okay, we got it. So now it's put these back in alphabetical order at the top for us. We don't want these anymore. So again, Tableau, great, drag and drop, intuitive. We want for our shot attempts 4 to be in our columns. So let's drag it so we can replace it. Now Tableau wants to create these two views side by side. We don't want this old one anymore, so we just drag it over to the left and it's gone. So now we have CF60 in numbers that you might be more used to seeing. Let's do the same thing for our shots against. Drag it right beside. Now it's creating these two charts for us. It wants to show us shot attempts 4 versus score adjusted shot attempts against, and also the per 60 version. So we're getting both. It's applying it to both. You could keep dragging things onto here and it will keep showing you this versus this, this versus this, this versus this, this versus whatever. We don't want that. We're just getting rid of these. Okay, so now we're back to our jumble. Let's fix that up really quick. So if you can get ahead of me here, do it. Right click, edit the axis. We don't want it to include 0. It's not a bar chart, it's a scatter plot, so we can get rid of that. Title's already good to go. Spaced out nicely. Detroit heading to its native position. Do the same thing, double click or right click on your horizontal. Get rid of that include 0. We already like the title, but we want to reverse this once we get the best teams in the top right. Reversed. There we go. Okay, so this looks a lot more like the season that we had before it paused. We've got Detroit generating basically no shots per hour. We have Montreal Canadiens at almost 20 shots per hour more than Detroit at even strength. The Devils doing their Devils thing, the Blues embracing old school hockey. This kind of looks the way that it felt like looked right through the season. Let's get our reference lines back on there. Again, if you know what you're doing, get ahead of me. Add the reference line. I take out the computation, so I trust my viewer to know that it's an average line. I keep it thin this time, but I will go dark. And okay. Same thing over here. Edit the axis. Sorry, add reference line. Take off the computation. And I'm making it a black, thin average line. Okay, awesome. Okay, so you have the bare bones, if you've stuck with me this far, you got the bare bones of your very first scatter plot showing shot rate for and against at 5-on-5 in the NHL in our pause season. So pat on the back if you're this far along, looks really good. All right, so let's jump ahead to how we get this sort of visually presentable and then online so we can do something with it and share. At the bottom, if we wanted to start something brand new, a new project, we could go with new worksheet. This was a worksheet that we just completed. We don't want to start a new one for now. Maybe we'll go back and do something with expected goals later, but not for now. We want a dashboard. And a dashboard is sort of that polished final view that you're going to share online. So click on New Dashboard, and you're popped into this screen. Dashboards can hold as many worksheets like this. Dashboards can hold as many as you want to throw into here. It's sort of like that final Bristol board that you hold up at the front of your class to present what you're presenting. You can put all the different things you cut out from encyclopedias on it at the end. These little cutouts are our sheets. So we only have one. So we're just going to click over here on our sheet. Just going to click and drag it in. Okay, so this is the getting closer to the presentable version of what we want to do. There are so many options here for customizing it to make it look the way you would like it to look. You can start with the size. Right now it's at a small size. We could make it 1,000 by 600 and really stretch that out. The issue with going really, really large in a situation like this is that it's stretching our x-axis out much more than our y-axis, so it's making it look like there's distance between teams horizontally that there really isn't. So I would recommend keeping width and height pretty similar here. We need to allow just a little bit more width, so I'm going to go 700 and 600. We're allowing a little bit of width, about 100, because we've got our legend and our filter that we added over here. Okay, so this is pretty good. Now we need to do a couple of touch-ups here so we can save it and you can see what it looks like on your profile. And I am mindful that I'm at about maybe 10 minutes or so before 12:30, and I want to stop right around there. So let's go quick. Over here are all the different things that you could drag onto your dashboards in addition to your worksheets. So we're going to drag a little bit of text. Super, super important, and something that really needs to be stressed is giving credit where credit is due for data that we're using. And so at the bottom, I usually tag that my own name on a chart, just to make sure that if somebody wants to use it, that the fact that I made it is associated with it. But we really want to make sure that the data creator, the data provider, receives credit for providing this free data source for us online. So I'm going to say 5v5 data provided by the incomparable moneypuck.com via moneypuck.com. Again, everything is editable in Tableau, so we can make this as large as we like, center it, whatever you want to do. So I'll just leave it like that. Everything can be resized, so we can make it invisible to see our actual chart. We can shrink this all the way down, put it to a spot so we can see the full credit at the bottom. Okay, this is pretty good. We've got our data credit at the bottom, super important. Our team's legend is over here at the side still. If we were doing something for the players, and so we had 20 St. Louis Blues logos on here, this is really great because you can click on the little highlight item here. And when it's clicked and you click on a team, Tableau will just find that team for you and highlight them. It's not really necessary for the view we have, though, because you can see everybody, there's enough space, and there's only one logo per team. I'm actually just going to click to delete it because you can. If you decide for some reason it's really important, you want that back, just bring it on back with the undo, but we don't need it. We can see everybody. Let's give ourselves a title. You can double click. Call it whatever you like. Again, you can center that title. Double click on it. Everything is editable. Bold it. Whatever you want to do. Okay, great. So that's, quick, dirty, fast, but we've got ourselves our first scatter plot. There's one other million things that we could have done here, but this, gets us live. One more thing before we save it online, just so you can see, a really cool feature that I've been sort of obsessed with the past few days is in format at the top, animations. Just click on it so you can see it. It auto sets to off, but you can click to on. And then Tableau will automatically animate based on the data that you feed to it. Because this is just sort of a first Tableau shot, it's supposed to take you from nothing to something. I won't get stuck in here, but if you leave it on, I just want to show you how this can start to appear. We have it on as fast and simultaneous. If you change situation to say 5-on-4, you can watch the teams move. And it's just, does it tell us anything brand new? A little bit, because we can see how a team moves from one quadrant to the other based on the strength. But I really do think that it's important that this is just visually sort of captivating, at least for me, and I think for viewers too. And so when you can catch somebody's eye with something, now you've bought yourself some time to say, now here's the analysis that goes with it, with this sort of catchy view. And I think that's something that in Effective Math, that Micah Blake McCurdy has really sort of dominated the space, because his views are just so captivating. And so you're drawn to him right away. And then you stay for the analysis and you learn something. And ultimately, I think that's a great model for any of us to follow. So mess around with these animations. If it's something that interests you, you can set them to a little bit slower, set it to sequential. Then when you move it around, it kind of behaves a little differently. But anyway, just sort of a neat feature. So I'm going to leave it on. Do as you wish. Let's get this live onto your new Tableau page. So hard disk, we got the save button here. Click on save and title it whatever you like. I'll call mine Tableau tutorial. Click save. And it's going to save our view for us. So this will automatically pop up whatever your default web browser is to show you your very first viz online on your new Tableau account site. Okay, so hopefully you're here and following along. So publish complete, this is great. We have our very first viz. So if you got this far and you're looking at your own viz under your own name on here, round of applause for yourself. Congratulations, you've learned something new today, which is really, really cool. So now it's alive online on your own page. So let's just take a look at what that might look like for you. Go to my profile. It's just on the little avatar, top right, my profile. View as others. So you should see your own chart right at the top. Mine's right here, Tableau tutorial. And then you can do a couple of things from here that are important. One thing I just want to point out is that there's a little eye here. If you click on it, it makes it viewable to anybody who visits your Tableau page. If you click on the eye and have the little line across it, only you can see it. And so I'll just leave mine private for now. The line stays across, only I can see it. Great. So now it works just the same way as it did in Tableau on your program, but you can close Tableau if you want, and this lives on the internet. So we can do all those same things, change our filter, watch the animation, move across for us. And we could do a couple other things. The main one to wrap up with is down here, the download button. You can download your own image. You can download your workbook again, all the work that you did here, you can download it again so you can start from this spot next time. If you want to just download your image, you can. And with that downloaded image, you can then go to twitter.com and you can pump in your very first tweet with your new image that you created for yourself. Make sure you shout out moneypuck.com for the data if you decide to do that. Okay, so I'm at 12:30. This isn't even, scratching the surface of what Tableau is capable of doing, but hopefully this is enough that you can go from not really knowing anything about Tableau to having it downloaded, having some logos, and then being able to dig around in a really rich data set and do some research. And I'll just finish up by saying I'm at Charting Hockey on Twitter, and if there's something I can do to help you out beyond just this course today to help sort of push you or answer a question if you get stuck, you can reach out to me anytime. And I want to close by thanking Alyssa for all her tremendous work in getting ISOL-HAC set up. If you've ever tried to run a classroom or run a meeting, or if you've been living the Zoom lifestyle over the past couple of months, you know how hard it is to get something like this to function properly. And this has been just, a really fantastic job done by Alyssa. So thank you to her for the chance to make this happen, for doing such a great job. And thank you to you for sticking with me. And I hope you enjoyed and learned something.